morning, Nadine.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Busy.
I should imagine you're very big. Thanks so much for making the time today. You know,
Oh,
and
it's my pleasure.
and you okay with us not doing the formalities of sort of doctor and all that stuff? We try and keep it pretty informal here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that all right? Okay.
Yeah, of course.
So Nadine, right now, I'd love to get into your background, but before we get into any of that and your thoughts specifically around mental health, what's the biggest number one challenge for you as the Surgeon General of California right now?
What's the biggest challenge for me right now?
In terms of, do you think of it in terms of sort of, okay, how do we keep everybody at home? Or is it kind of, how do we make sure that resources and supplies are in the places that they need to be? Or is there no kind of stat ranking of this? It's like all of these are equally important. We've got to do them all now.
I think in California, we've been, pretty fortunate, and I will knock on wood on that, that we have had incredible participation from residents all over California who have actually done a really good job of staying home to save lives. And even though, we recognize that the most powerful tool that we have right now to fight this virus is our behavior, right? Because, it's going to be a while for a vaccine. We're still working on therapeutics. And so here in California, we've been really fortunate that the spread of the virus has not overwhelmed our healthcare system. So we're not we're not in that place yet. So that's something that we're really grateful for. But there's a lot. One of the things that I am most concerned about is the impact that this pandemic is having on our the impact that the stress of this pandemic is having on our physical, mental, and behavioral health, right? Because there are a lot of people who are really struggling right now. And so we're looking at not just getting ventilators and having enough hospital beds, and but also making sure that we're thinking ahead about the impact that this is having.
Yeah, and it was one of the reasons we're really excited to kind of have you on today was to ask you about that, because I think obviously there is, okay, we need to fight the fire and what's going on right now. So obviously there's the physical stuff, but I feel like it's changing, but there's not always been the focus on mental health that there has been on physical health. And with so many vulnerable people now shut away in quarantine, not having those social circles of support, whether it's medical or friends, whatever, family, whatever it might be, that you must be anticipating and thinking to, like, what is this going to look like kind of coming out the other side of it?
Yeah, so we're not only anticipating, but the same way that we do, what we call disease modeling to look at how many people, the way the virus spreads and how, what that means in terms of what we're going to need for healthcare. Similarly, we're working to do some disease modeling around looking at past natural disasters, things like Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy, looking at economic downturns, even looking at things like earthquakes and looking at, okay, what impact has that had on people's health, their mental health, and their behavioral health, and what does that mean about the need that's going to be arising as the time goes on?
What are practical things that sort of all of us in society can be doing to support those people who are likely to be more vulnerable in this time of stress?
Yeah, well, there's obviously the first thing is staying home for everyone. But specifically in terms of stress, one of the things that we know makes a really big difference is social supports, right? We have really strong evidence that social supports are really powerful in terms of mitigating the effects of an overactive stress response. And so reaching out to folks that we know and recognize may be more vulnerable. I mean, Andy, one of the things that we're seeing right now, frankly, is, we're thinking down the road, but we're already seeing we're seeing higher rates of family violence, for example,
Yeah.
right? We're seeing higher rates of, mental health concerns, substance use, like, all of these things, we're seeing higher rates. And it's really concerning. So one is reaching out, but the other thing is spreading the word about resources and letting people know they're not alone. And if there was ever a time to get over the stigma of reaching out for mental health care, right? Like now would be the time. So we actually, here in California, but it's really available to anyone, we have on our covid19.ca.gov website a whole page on mental and emotional well-being, where folks can get access to hotline numbers and resources. And I've developed the Surgeon General's Playbook for stress relief during COVID, and all of that is available.
And this is your background too, right? Because you're am I right in thinking, and it's specific around stress in young people, is that right?
Yeah, so my background, I'm a pediatrician. It's my medical training, but my research has been how stress, and particularly stress and adversity and trauma in childhood, how does it get under our skin and change our biology? Because we recognize that when we experience trauma in childhood, it really significantly increases the risk for lifelong health and mental health concerns. But my favorite part of the research is then what can we do about it?
Yeah, right.
Right. And so right now, for anyone, so we're all feeling a lot of stress. So as a stress physiology researcher, I put out the playbook with some of the evidence-based ways that people can work on regulating their stress response, right? And reducing the amount of stress hormones that their bodies are making. But we also want to recognize that anyone who's had a history of trauma or adversity or mental or behavioral concerns, right? The added stress from this pandemic they're going to be more vulnerable. Yeah. Right. And so it's really important for us to recognize that. And then when we recognize it, then we can put things into place to be able to address it.
How much do you think, is it really interesting? So obviously working in space of mental health and mindfulness, it's often viewed as a kind of an either or. It's either preventative, it's about building up resilience, or it's sort of treatment, and it's kind of something has already happened. And there's sometimes there's a middle ground of, okay, it can help me manage. But in your position, are you kind of, as you look ahead to future generations, are you, whilst obviously looking after those people who are struggling and having a tough time now, is your focus on how to give the next generation coming through the tools and services they need at an earlier age, maybe even, I don't know, through school curriculums perhaps, so that they don't end up sort of in their life kind of needing to sort of think they need to fix or change something?
Yeah, so, it's the old ounce of prevention, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Yeah. And here in California, we've actually launched a first in the nation initiative around adverse childhood experiences, where we've been training all of our healthcare providers to screen for early adversity and respond with trauma-informed care, including helping doctors to understand, what are the interventions that can help their patients. So it's, because one of the things that the research shows us is that early detection and early intervention it makes a really big difference, right? It improves outcomes. And so some of the things that I really look at it the way we look at any other public health intervention. Yeah. There's the information and resources that we want to give to everyone. It's almost like vaccinating folks against disease, right? Yeah. But then we're also working to, train our frontline providers on learning how to understand and recognize which individuals may be more vulnerable. And that does include you know, we would like to. So we're, you know, before the COVID pandemic, we had a fantastic plan.
I'm sure.
To also include training, you know, our early childhood educators, our, you know, folks in our educational system, law enforcement, government workers, right? In terms of being able to recognize and respond and understand more about what's going on. And so some of those things will have to be juggled.
I'm sure.
As we're focused on the COVID response, but it's still a really big priority for me to make sure that all of these people have not only the training, but the tools, right?
Yeah.
The tools.
Absolutely. And I think, look, I mean, California is unquestionably, I think, one of the most progressive states in terms of sort of healthcare and how you sort of think, how you guys are thinking about it. It's really exciting for us as we, you know, as we talk to, whether it's schools or hospitals or clinics, we see a huge change in recent years in terms of their adoption of tools and services, sort of like mindfulness. How do you have any personal kind of experience? We haven't spoken before. Like, do you have any personal experience yourself with practicing meditation or mindfulness or?
So, Andy, I have to tell you, I have been looking forward to this conversation with you because for two reasons. One, because I'm a big fan of Headspace. You've been the voice in my head.
I didn't know that.
Oh my goodness, yes. And not only that, I have to tell you, my kids love it.
Oh.
Yeah, love it. They ask for it. They're like, Mama, can we do this?
How old are they?
So I have, my husband and I have 4 boys, twin 17-year-olds, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And it's my 7-year-old and my the teenagers are too cool. But my 7-year-old and my 4-year-old, you know, we will sit down and do it together before they go to bed.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
But the reason I'm such a big fan of yours, Andy, is because, you know, in my role as a stress physiology researcher, right? One of the things that we understand more is that it's not just this black box. It's what happens when we experience something stressful or traumatic, right? Yeah. Our bodies release stress hormones. We activate that fight or flight response. And when you look at the body of research and evidence, mindfulness is one of the interventions that actually helps to calm down the fight or flight response and helps to activate the brain and body's, you know, other tool, which is the, you know, what we call as resting and digesting. It's the parasympathetic nervous system. And I spent, you know, I spent a decade and a half working in a very low-income neighborhood in San Francisco, caring for kids who experienced a lot of trauma, adversity, you know, even community violence and household violence. And mindfulness was actually one of the clinical tools that we use in my medical practice, based on that evidence of how it can help to strengthen the parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh, interesting. So you probably have you have a regular practice. You do something with your kids.
Oh my goodness. So yes, I have a regular practice for myself.
Yeah.
And then I've got my husband into it, so now he has a
regular
practice. And then we do it with the kids. So yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, tell your younger ones. We launched something with Sesame Street yesterday, so that they can now do both Sesame Street and Headspace at the same time. There's a nice little meditation in the kitchen with me and Cookie Monster, and they can join in. They can join in with that.
They'll be so excited. They will be so excited.
Beyond this, I'm just looking at the questions that are coming in here. So beyond meditation, what else do you do to make sure that you maintain your healthy equilibrium in a very sort of stressful environment and sort of reduce the amount of stress in your life?
Yeah. So regular exercise is really important.
Yeah.
And that is something that not only helps to metabolize stress hormones, but it also helps to release healthy hormones that support our mood and counteract our stress. I also, one of the most important things is sleep, right? So having a regular sleep routine, and I'm like clockwork.
I was going to say, how does that work with 4 children? It sounds like it works okay.
It works, you negotiate with your spouse around shifts. So he takes, he takes the evening shift and I'm the morning shift with the kids.
Okay, that's a good deal.
But yeah, no, getting regular sleep, going to bed and waking up at the same time each day, I think is really important. That's another way, a form of training the mind, right?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Training the mind and body. So that piece is really important. Staying connected to our healthy relationships is another one. And another one actually is nutrition, right? Because we recognize that having a diet that has lots of fruits and vegetables, lean protein, fish and nuts that have lots of omega-3 fatty acids is also really helpful in counteracting the impacts of stress.
On that, do you see a big change? Well, sort of throughout your career, as far I think back, decades sometimes, the kind of sort of the health advice we've all received, it feels, these things don't always move quickly, right? Or they don't move as quickly as we would like them to. Do you feel that, when it comes to exercise and nutrition, to me, it looks as though they have just become much more part of society? They haven't yet necessarily reached every community and gone as deep as we might like them to. But I feel like things have moved. And when it comes to mindfulness, maybe it's because of the access online and it's on the phone. You don't have to go somewhere. There doesn't have to be a physical place. It feels like that's moved even kind of quicker than perhaps some of the physical exercise movements that have taken kind of, is again, just my...
Yeah, I mean, don't you think that you've been part of that change, though? I mean, with Headspace,
one small part. We've been part of the conversation.
I feel like I definitely think that's the case. I think that you definitely see a lot of these practices becoming much more part of the culture.
Yeah.
And you definitely, you hear about, different celebrities and different people who are, doing meditation. You hear Jennifer Aniston saying that, oh, she has to meditate all the time. It's an important part of her regular preparation, right? And so I think that we're hearing more about it. It's becoming more part of the culture, and it's also becoming more accessible. I also think, frankly, the fact that the research, there's been more and more research about this topic. So there are more and more, I will say for myself, clinicians, both mental health clinicians and then also, physicians who are including that as a regular part of their management of their patients.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been amazing to what I don't think we ever imagined that people kind of write in and say, we always ask that where they found out about. So, oh, my doctor recommended it, and I don't think we ever kind of anticipated that we'd get to that stage. I'm delighted that we have done, and my hope is we can get to a stage where it's not just recommended, where it's also prescribed, and where health insurers will cover it, and people who previously didn't have access to it will be able to kind of have access to it.
Yeah, and one of the other wonderful ways that people get this message is simply by word of mouth. Like when there's more people doing it, there's more people talking about it. And I would say, even for anyone who's watching this Instagram live right now, especially if you're a Headspace user, one of the fun things is like share your favorite meditation with a friend.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's really fantastic, because I think it's one thing to hear from, a doctor or someone else like, oh, hey, here's this this app or this mindfulness intervention. But it's also, I think it goes even further when you have, a friend or a sibling to say, this really helped me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, look, we've been coming together every day, Nadine, to do. I don't take up lots of your time. Just to sort of close this out, because so many people are at home, so many people are on their own, and I think it's more important than ever that we just take a little bit of time out, just to pause, whether it's for 10 breaths, whether it's for 10 minutes. So we normally do a short little exercise at the end. You're welcome to stay with us. If you want to go offline, you're welcome to. If the kids want to join in, they can too. I don't know where you are right now, if you're at home, but...
the kids are sequestered while Mama is working.
Locked in the kitchen, that's what we do with that. Yeah, but thank you so much for taking the time out. So I know how busy you are. Thank you to you and all of your colleagues for everything that you're doing.
Well, it's my pleasure. And I just want to offer as well that all of the resources that I talked about and some of the recommendations that I shared, they're all available in the Surgeon General's Playbook for stress relief during COVID-19. And that is on our website, covid19.ca.gov. And we have a playbook for adults and a playbook for caregivers and kids. So anyone who wants to get those resources can get them there.
Amazing. And a reminder to everyone tuning in as well, if you know of anyone who you think would enjoy Headspace, get some benefit from Headspace, tell them, share with them. It's free. You know, Weathering the Storm at the moment is free to use. It's free for healthcare professionals. It's free for educators. We want to get it out there. We want more people to use it. So please do share with your friends, with your family as well. On that note, should we take a minute or two?
Yes, I'm so excited about this.
Great. Well, no Cookie Monster for this one, unfortunately. So you only get me today. But wherever you are at home, as always, take a moment. Make sure you're in a place where you're not going to be too disturbed by anything that's going on around you. You can do it sitting up, lying down, whatever is most comfortable. And is there any, Nadine, I didn't ask you, is there any particular type of technique that you like? Do you prefer visualization? Do you prefer focusing on the breath, or nothing at all?
I do like focusing on the breath.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to do that today, especially for you. Okay. So we'll start in the normal way. So eyes open, and just a really soft focus with the eyes, not looking at one thing, but just aware of all the colors, the shapes around us, and just maintaining that soft focus, just taking a big deep breath, breathing in through the nose. And as you breathe out through the mouth, just gently closing the eyes if you'd like to. And just feeling the weight of the body sink down. So don't worry too much about what's going on with the mind. Just allow the thoughts to come and go. Just focusing on that sensation of the body sinking down into the seat or the floor. And just taking a moment to check in with the body today, to notice how the body feels, any tiredness, heaviness, maybe lightness, energy. Just each day taking the time to check in. And as you become more aware of the body, just starting to become more aware of the breath. So that rising and falling sensation. So for some people, the chest, for others, the diaphragm, for others, the stomach. Doesn't matter where you feel it. Can't feel anything? Just gently place your hand on your stomach. And we're just going to rest here. Just for a few seconds. Again, not breathing in any special way, just allowing the body to breathe some natural rhythm. Noticing when the mind wanders off, not thinking about it, but just acknowledging it, letting it go, and then coming back to the breath. Just stay here for a few seconds more. If you're doing this at home at any time, Remember, if you find it easy, you can just count the breaths as they pass. And this is an exercise you can do for just a few seconds, a few minutes. For now, we're going to let go of that focus on the breath, and actually just for a moment let go of any focus on anything. Just allow the mind to be completely free. If it wants to think, let it think. So no sense of effort. And then just gently bringing the attention back into the body. Coming back to that feeling of contact, of weight. And whenever you feel ready, just gently opening the eyes again. Welcome back. So, as I say, I know I say this every day, but it's so important right now to look after our self-care. If you're tuning in today, find the time, even if it is just a couple of minutes a day, to look after your mind. It won't just impact the way you feel at the time that you do the exercise, it will change the way that you feel throughout the day. And it won't just change how you feel for yourself, it will change the way that you feel towards others and the way that you can be there for others in a way that is very difficult when we're caught up in our own thinking and in our own mind. So try, if you can, to make time for your mind, and as Nadine said today, also find some time to exercise if you can. Try to go to bed at a decent time so that you wake up feeling more rested. I really feel like it's so tempting in this environment to throw it all out the window and think there's no point. There is more point than ever, not just for how we feel now, but also for how we feel. This isn't going to end overnight. We've got quite a bit of time ahead of us, and to develop a routine, I think, is just incredibly, incredibly helpful. So Nadine, thanks again so much for making the time. I hope we get to talk again soon. And please say hi to the rest of the family for me. Say hi to the kids for me, and yeah, tell me what they think of Cookie Monster.
I will do that. Thank you.
All right. Nice. Thanks, guys.